Everybody. So 2.5 years after Joel and I were married, we decided, hey, let's have some babies, because we love babies.
We like that.
We love babies, and Mom and Dad were really excited. So halfway through the pregnancy, we went to see if we were having a boy or girl, because I don't know about you guys, but I cannot wait. I got to know exactly what we're having the minute I find out I'm pregnant. We were having a wonderful time with the technician, joking and laughing, and after he found out that we were having a girl, he just said, I'm going to have to take some pictures of, the rest of their body, just to make sure everything's working well. And we were sitting there, and he started taking pictures of her brain and became very quiet and turned the monitor away from us. Well, I'm sneaky, and so I took the mirror that he gave me, and I was looking at what he was seeing when the rest of the family couldn't. And I noticed that her brain was not filling up the cavity of her skull. And so I knew right then something was probably wrong. Next day, our doctor called to confirm my suspicions. Aubrie's brain wasn't correctly fusing. It's like a zipper, and it wasn't zipped up all the way in the back. And that I was not going to be able to have her as a patient, as a doctor anymore, because I had to go see a specialist. The first thing they did when we went to see the geneticist and specialist was to tell us that it wasn't our fault, and that it was actually a fluke. They had no reason for why it would happen. Of course, I told them, God doesn't do anything carelessly. He has a plan for each and every baby. Well, the next thing they told us was that because of our faith, they had to tell us by law that we have an option to abort her. Because in cases like this, that is what most people do. And by law, they had to tell us. And of course, we told them at the same time, no, it's not an option for us. Thank you, though. And they were like, well, just, we kind of want to at least tell you a little bit about it. And I said, well, you don't need to tell us anything about it. We know what it is, and we're going to say no. Because for us, our God doesn't make mistakes. Every baby is planned by God, and every baby has a purpose, no matter how long or short their life is. By the end of the meeting, we were all in tears, and we had the support of our geneticist and our specialist counselor.
And if it were that easy, we wouldn't be up here talking to you, right? So Aubrie became a high-risk pregnancy, and that meant that Kellie had to go into bi-weekly and then ultimately weekly visits just to check on the baby, and see what condition that she was in. And without fail, all the doctors would be like, "Why don't you abort the baby? Why are you still keeping her?" They would make comments like, why are you still pregnant? If you were my daughter, my sister, or even my niece, I would tell you to have an abortion. And, they would even ask, why do you do this to yourself? It'd be easier on your body, if you just, terminated the baby. It'd be easier on your future if you terminated the baby. And, Kellie would keep telling them that, it's God who chooses how long the baby lives. So if she were to end her life, to terminate her, and she would not know, how many days or how long, Aubrie would have the potential to live. And she can't live with herself knowing that she cut that short. So ultimately, these questions just became harassments, really. And eventually, Kellie had to tell them that, write this in big red letters in my file. Abortion is not an option. Please don't ask anymore. And, they finally did. So the doctor said that the odds were stacked against Aubrie even from the beginning because of the severity of her condition. She would most likely not make it to term. And if she did make it to term, she would die during labor. And if she were born, she would be unresponsive and die within minutes. Well, I'm glad to tell you by God's grace, that she beat every single one of those odds. She was born on her due date. She even cried, when she was born. And that actually shocked all of the doctors and the nurses that were in the room. They were ready for a stillborn, and it's funny because there was a half a second of stillness, and then all of a sudden, flurry of movement, she's alive. And it was like, yeah.
We weren't prepared for that. They're like, she's crying. And we're like, well, yeah.
So, the doctor who delivered Aubrie wasn't a Christian, but her husband was. And, we heard afterwards, when she went home that day, she told her husband about us and asked him what was up with this God. One of the first people that, we found out were affected by, just, when we had gone in, we were all like, hey, we're having a baby and stuff, and everyone's like, why are you so happy? Your baby has, this condition. And we're like, she's going to be born. This is a gift that God's given us. And, we found out, that the nurses were all encouraged by that as well. But, she asked, what was up with God? Why could our little family be so happy and hopeful for a baby that wouldn't make it, because of our faith, And her husband, for the first time, was able to witness to her with her heart and mind open. As doctors, you tend to close your mind to these things. But, it gave her husband a chance to actually witness and share the gospel.
So Aubrie lived for 13 days. You'd think we would be able to enjoy that time with her, but the battle still raged on. Because she was on monitors, we were constantly asked by doctors, you should just take her off. She'll just slowly just pass and she'll just stop breathing. And we're like, yeah, no, that's still not happening. Have you not read our file? Yeah, it's just not working out for us. So we left her on, and they kept telling us, it'd be better. But we kept telling them daily, no, it's not the plan. And we told them, you need to do every heroic effort to keep her alive. When you can do nothing more, that's when we know it's time. So the morning when Aubrie she passed, I prayed, Lord, please heal my baby. She's tired and she's fought for so long. Please heal her, or take her home with you. Your will be done, but know that we'd really like her to be here. We're just saying, but your will be done. A few minutes later, our phone rang. It was the doctor saying, you're going to need to come. Her body's shutting down. The machines aren't going to help. It's time. Well, we knew that was what God's answer was, that her time was over. She'd fulfilled her purpose. And we spent those hours. We actually were there for 4 or 5 hours with her, off the machine, holding her, singing praises to God. And a lot of the nurses would come in and check on us. And we had one nurse that was one of my biggest supporters. She came, and when she died, she told me that she wanted us to come and be with her when she passed, because she said that is how everybody should die, surrounded by their friends and their family, and singing. And she knew that baby was loved, and that our faith was very strong. She held me and she cried, and all the nurses did too. And they ended up, we knew that they loved us because we were different.
And the nurses had said that, there's never been such a familial and a friend support for any babies that had been, in the NICU, that it really encouraged them. So.
And I think that we were actually because that NICU was new, we were the very first babies that they lost. They just, they didn't have any other experience with that at that particular moment in time.
But, the whole thing is that the battle does not end with Aubrie's death. As you know, we have a Facebook page that we were keeping people updated on Aubrie's condition, and with several churches that were involved in it. And, afterwards we decided, we're going to keep this going because, a story like Aubrie's, may not get national attention, but, people need to hear her story. And from that, we were able, a few people at my old church and some other places, they were told that their baby was terminal and that they should abort. But because of, our story and, our friends were able to share with them, Aubrie's story and just Kellie's strength and, faith,
your support.
That they decided to keep the baby. And, right now, there are at least 4 babies right now still alive that they had told to terminate.
And they decided that if we could go through it, they could do it too. And they kept their babies.
Mm-hmm. And they're alive and healthy today. So we want to leave you with 2 verses. We've actually gone over them. Pastors talked about them already. But, these were 2 verses that kind of hit, us during this time. Psalm 139:16. We just talked about. You saw me before I was born. Every day, my life was recorded in your book. Every day of Aubrie's life was recorded. God already knew that she was going to live 13 days. And the impact that it would have afterwards. Every moment was laid out before a single day had passed.
And Ephesians 2:10, for we are God's masterpiece. He's created us anew in Christ Jesus so we can do the good things He planned for us long ago. And if you're interested and you have a Facebook account, it's Team Aubrie, Aubrie. And we have babies on there all the time that need just, hey, I don't know who you are, but I'm praying for you. And we've had at least six cases that have needed prayers, and 2 of babies which haven't survived. But we were told that from their mom and dad that helped them. And so just if you're on Facebook, please like the page. And if we put a baby up there, please just let them know that you're thinking about them and praying, because that is the biggest thing that helped Joel and I. Yep. It's the prayers of all the churches and people that we knew and didn't know. So if you ever come across anybody like us, just love on them and share our story with them.